So today we're going to be covering fats and oils, and I printed out a copy of the Healthy Cooking Oils Ultimate Guide. This is from authoritynutrition.com. It's on your the other printout. It's one of the best sites on nutrition you'll find anywhere because it is based entirely on research. Every single article you'll have a little number in parentheses after a statement, and then you go to the references, and the reference will give you the citation where the research that backs up the statement that was made comes from. And not only do you have the citation, but if you click on the citation, it'll take you to the paper, okay, to the research paper itself. There's an awful lot of stuff on nutrition that's just people's opinion, okay? I like this, I want that, I think this is great. Authority Nutrition bases every statement they make on published nutrition research, okay? Someone who's done a study, all right? Preferably the kinds of studies that are not just correlational, though there's an awful lot of that. You know, if you do this, then this seems to happen. But experimental as well. Take a group, divide it into, give group A one particular kind of food, give group B none of that food, and then compare measured results in terms of their blood sugar and their lipid levels, their weight, whatever you're measuring. And so those are true experiments that really tell you that there's an effect that is being measured. Okay? Nutrition science, quote unquote, is filled with all kinds of facts that are merely based on conjecture. Okay? So you've got to be careful when you're reading nutrition science, because you'll find an awful lot of opinions and contradictory advice. So we're going to go through a good part of this toward the end, but let's just get started, if I can, with my usual caveat that, otherwise, anybody new to the group today? Anybody here for the first time? Okay. So you already know that I'm not a physician, I'm not here to give medical advice. Before you make any dietary changes, you need to consult with your clinician. We've also heard that we've been told fat is bad for us because A, we thought it contributed to heart disease, and B, because it's twice as calorie dense, which it is. It's a little more than twice the calories in the same equivalent amount of fat as carbohydrates. And thereby the assumption was if you want to lose weight, you want to cut calories, then cut out fat, you'll cut out twice as many calories. There's sort of a certain logic to that. Unfortunately, our body doesn't handle fats the same way it handles carbohydrates. Come on in. Have a seat. Just getting started. What we know is that when people eat low-fat foods, to often replace the fat in them with sugar, that they end up either not losing weight and many times gaining weight, and they're wondering, I'm eating all this low-fat food and I'm gaining weight, what's going on? We've also learned, finally, the United States Dietary Advisory Committee has also learned from looking at research that cholesterol is not bad for us, with rare exception of people with familial hypercholesterolemia, which is a disease. Eating cholesterol has no effect on the amount of cholesterol in your blood. Okay, and it's that amount that is important. We're going to learn more about that today. Eating fat helps with weight loss. This is totally contradictory to everything we've learned over the last 40 years. We've all been accustomed to the idea that if we eat fat, we get fat. When in fact, if we eat fat, we get thin. We lose weight. It's the carbohydrates that convert to fat in our bodies, not the fat that we eat. Anybody unclear about that still? Keep going over and over that. We're going to talk about fats and oils today. carbohydrates that we don't use or burn, that get stored as fat in our bodies. And it's carbohydrates that we need to reduce. Okay, so what about fats and oils? First of all, we have to distinguish between fat on our plate and fat in our blood. They're two different things, okay? First of all, fat on our plate may or may not be apparent. How does fat get hidden that's in our food? How do we...
Well, through cooking.
Yeah, through cooking, right. If I put a piece of cheesecake on your plate, can you see the fat that's in it? No. Where is it? The cream cheese, oil, butter that might be used to make it. That's it. But it doesn't look like fat. If I put a steak on your plate and it has some fat on it, can you find the fat? Yeah, because it's visible. Okay. Most of the fat that we consume is not visible. It's incorporated into the foods that we eat. In particular, the combination of fat and carbohydrates together, okay, is what constitutes much of the American diet. Okay, you think about all the foods that have some fat and a good deal of flour, sugar, and other kinds of things. The whole, you walk into a bakery, you're basically looking at a carbohydrate feeding machine, okay? Because, right, bacon that smells so good, doesn't it? Right, and if you realize that bakeries like we have today have only existed for a few hundred years. The fact that we have now these refined flours that make things look and taste so good, and sugars that get emulsified into all of this, and then enough fat for browning and to give it some texture and mouth appeal, things of that sort. There's no question that we have learned how to make foods that will do what? Make you fat, right. We are very good at it, okay? We've perfected that science. We know exactly what appeals to people, what people like to eat, and in particular with carbohydrates. Anybody ever had the experience of sitting down to eat a couple cookies and then find that you've eaten half the package? Anybody? Yeah.
Especially Girl Scout cookies.
I think Oreos are my number one. Yeah. They're seemingly with carbohydrates, there's no limit to how much you want to eat, because if they don't have sufficient fat in them, you don't get satiety, and you just eat more and more. And it also does something to your brain when you eat carbohydrates. What does it do? Makes you feel bad or good? Very good, yeah. It releases serotonin. That's the blood factor in your brain that makes you feel relaxed, okay? A little sleepy, that we've all had that big mac and cheese meal, and all that serotonin release, and the next thing you're on the couch, right? Okay. That's what carbohydrates do. They don't give you signals that it's time to stop eating. If anything, they kind of entice you to keep eating more and more as you go. So you overeat your limit. How many people have sat down and eaten half a pound of cheese? Anybody? No? How about a cup of olive oil? Anybody just sat there and drunk a cup of olive oil? How about a half of one of those quarter sticks of butter? Anybody sat down and eaten a whole quarter stick of butter? Nobody? Well, wait a minute. Those are the things that supposedly make us fat. Don't we want that? Why doesn't fat in those quantities taste good to us? Why don't we consume fat the same way we consume carbohydrates?
They don't have any sugar in it that make it eat more.
Well, it signals us to eat less, actually. Okay? If you get too much fat and you start to feel it, it's like, oh, okay? People often describe foods that have a lot of fat as rich, okay? Oh, I can't eat that, that's too rich, okay? What that's saying is that we're getting satiety signals from that fat, okay? That fat is saying enough, okay? And we don't overconsume fats like that. but put a little bit of that fat in a mixture with flour and sugar, nothing's going to stop us. Okay, we'll eat the whole package, right? So chips, the big bag of chips, family size, next thing you know, it's half gone, okay, and there's nobody but you in the room. Okay, that's that phenomenon, that a little bit of fat with lots of carbs, and we eat, overeat easily. Lots of fat and no carbs, not interested, okay? So it's important to understand that. So the fat that we consume does not stimulate insulin. Where does insulin come from? Our pancreas, okay? You gotta have it. If you don't, we say you have type 1 diabetes, okay? That's an autoimmune disease where your body actually attacks the beta cells that produce insulin in your pancreas. We do not know why. If somebody can figure that out, they're going to be very famous, okay? And it's an awful disease. Do people who have type 1 diabetes, are they overweight or underweight? Well, initially they're underweight, okay? Often very thin, because remember, it's insulin that causes us to store fat. And if you do not produce any insulin, you don't store any fat. So oftentimes we discover a teenager is type 1 diabetic when they're eating voraciously. They're very hungry, but they can't put any weight on, okay? And they get very thin. That's the fact that we don't have insulin parking the carbs as fat. Once they start on insulin artificially, then they can put on fat, okay? And if they get too much insulin, they can be overweight like anybody else. Insulin's job is to do that. There's some interesting pictures that Gary Tubbs has in one of his books of people who've been injecting insulin into their abdomen, and they develop these fat growths like a tumor, okay, around the site of injection. Well, what's happening is all the insulin that's right there in those tissues are causing their body to store fat right there, okay? That's what it does. Insulin is a fat storage machine, if you will, okay? So, if you don't want to store fat, you don't want to stimulate your pancreas to produce insulin. If you have carbohydrates, particularly the nice refined grains that turn to sugar, glucose quickly in our blood, then that produces insulin, okay? If we want to eat something that doesn't produce insulin, what do we eat? Fat. Fat does not stimulate insulin. It does a very tiny amount, like a 20th of what we get from carbohydrates. So the idea that we eat fat that stimulates our insulin and then we store that fat is completely wrong. And anybody who knows anything about physiology will tell you that, including the dietitians who then turn around and tell you you have to eat carbohydrates. Okay? They don't look at their own science. Okay? And that's what low carbohydrate diets are based on. It's the idea that reduce the carbohydrates, reduce the insulin, add the fat, which will give you the energy you need. You need to have energy. And furthermore, fats also help with what? What comes with fat? Fat-soluble vitamins. Okay? That's why we have to have fat. There are 4 vitamins that you can only get if you have fat. So fat is an essential nutrient. You die if you don't have fat. If you don't have carbs, you're fine. Live all your life without a carbohydrate. Okay? And I told you about the Inuit and Eskimos who do that. There are other populations. So the usual assumption is the fat we eat is that becomes the fat in our bodies. So what's the fat in our blood called? Pardon me? Triglycerides, right? Is one form of fat in our blood. And then the other that we often go get measured is cholesterol, right? And that's a little package. It's not like you have globules of fat floating around. Fat does not dissolve in water. Our blood is water-based, and therefore, I don't know, I can't imagine what would happen if you put fat directly into your blood. You'd probably die immediately. So fat is transported to our cells. We need to get the fat from our liver to our cells, so it packages the fat in what's called a lipoprotein. Okay, it's a little package that has the fat inside of it, but the outside is cholesterol. Okay, remember, we need a lot of cholesterol. Cholesterol is important in our bodies. Okay, the cholesterol packages the fat and then transports it to our cells. If the cells accept it and we're not insulin resistant, in goes the fat, and the fat cell begins to expand unless it's a muscle cell, and we're working at the moment. But if we don't have cells that will accept that lipoprotein, it stays in the blood. The two kinds of cholesterol, you've had them measured, HDL and LDL. Which is the good one? HDL, the happy lipoprotein. And it's good because it transports the unused fats back to the liver. Okay, cleans your system out. So you want to have a good number of HDL particles that will keep your blood free of fats. LDL, on the other hand, is the one that takes it from the liver to your cells for energy. You need that. If you didn't have it, you'd be in trouble. Has anybody heard about the distinction between light, fluffy LDL and low, very dense LDL? No one's told you about that, right? Because you don't get it measured typically, okay? And in fact, it's the distinction between those two particle sizes in your LDL that make a difference. I'll leave you on. So we're clear that body fat comes from eating carbohydrates, right? Fats circulate in the blood in packages that I just said that are either high-density lipoproteins or low-density lipoproteins. Okay? Low density brings fat to our cells. High density takes the unused fats back to the liver. These LDL packages are either light and fluffy or small and dense. The small, dense ones are called very low density lipoproteins, VLDL. And if you can see this picture more clearly, you can see a little diagram of that. If you're really interested, go on the web and Google VLDL, and you'll get all kinds of information about that. All right? So olive oil is a good oil. So is butter or ghee, as we mentioned earlier. Fish oils. Okay? Anybody take fish oil? You can get little pills, right? You can get the oil you need from fish. Okay? And so we recommend at least once or twice a week you should have an oily fish like salmon. Last week I brought in some mackerel, tuna. You know, all the oily fishes have omega-3, and omega-3 is clearly understood as being a beneficial fat in your diet. Okay? Nobody argues with that. And there are clear instances where people who have high levels of omega-3 in their diet have very low heart disease rates. Okay? So if you're looking for a good fat, you need to look at omega. So the types of fat we should avoid, obviously the ones that are in the standard American diet, pizza, donuts, french fries, you name it, that's our fat supply. How can we get good fats? Well, we talked about those, and we're going to talk some more. A couple of things that, these are common sources of fats: cheese of all types, eggs, meat. When you buy meat in the, like hamburger, you know, we've all been told, buy the leanest hamburger. Why? Least amount of fat, especially saturated fat. Why? Saturated fat's going to do what? It's going to clog our arteries. We're going to die of a heart attack. Okay? Well, good news, you can buy the cheap stuff. Okay? You want to get meats with as much fat as possible. Though we'll talk about the problem with animals' fat today. And we'll mention that in a few minutes. Coconut oil. How many people have tried coconut oil? Good. Okay.
Does it taste like coconut?
Well, no, it doesn't. You can, yeah, you get you get virgin coconut oil, has no coconut taste at all. It has almost no taste at all. People sometimes just take a spoonful of it and put it in their coffee. You can't taste it, but it's a way of getting fat. It's a very good fat to cook with because it handles high temperatures very well.
Can see it all over,
Pardon?
shops.
Yeah, it's all over. Yeah, lots of people. Of course, people use it in their hair or brush their teeth with it. Over here, cream cheese, good source of fats. Next week, I'm going to do breakfast. Okay, we're going to talk breakfast, but I'm going to bring in some cereal alternatives for people who can't live without their cereal. Some things made with coconut and flaxseed and chia. Okay, things that you may never have tried before, but try this with some cream, and I'll bring the cream in. And tell me that you wouldn't mind eating that every morning. Okay, it's good stuff. But if you're looking for more fat in your diet, sour cream, add that on, butter, of course, bacon, eggs, coconut, cod liver oil. Anybody take cod liver oil? You do. Good for you. Right. It's an excellent source not only of fats and omega-3 fats.
It's awful, but I take it.
It's awful, right? It tastes horrible. But it's full of vitamins. It's really one of the best things that you can eat. Okay, and you don't need a lot, a teaspoon a day. And what do you do to get the taste out of your mouth?
Oh, usually I'll have my cup of coffee with it after.
Okay, and it goes away. Yeah, but
I don't take it. I can't get past that.
yeah. It's interesting when you learn some things about vitamins. One telltale sign of vitamins is that they're bitter. Okay, antioxidants. Have you heard that? Okay, that's what a vitamin is. It's an antioxidant. It's very bitter to the taste. It's partly why children don't like it. They like vegetables because there's a bitterness behind a lot of vegetables. Spinach is a good example. Okay, it doesn't have a naturally good taste. Cod liver oil is like this, full of vitamins, awful stuff. Okay.
Eat sardines, awful, but I eat them.
Right. There you go. Okay, you're getting your omega-3s. That's excellent. Okay. So those are some of the sources. Let's finish up with a few of the.
Dave, what were those fat bombs?
Fat bombs are nothing but you can take things like cream cheese and mix it with some coconut oil and maybe a little stevia if you like them hard. You can put some coconut chips on, roll them in that, but they're just fat. And you typically have to keep them in the freezer because fat will otherwise melt. You just leave them out on the
You
counter.
don't bake it, you just roll it up?
You don't bake it.
No, it's like a cheese ball.
Mix it up, right? And I'll get you some recipes for fat bombs. This is the whole, when people are trying to reduce their carbohydrates and increase their fats, it's sometimes hard to get enough fat in your diet. So, rather than reaching for the cookies that your spouse left on the counter and say, oh, heck with these low carb things, you can reach for something that tastes good in the refrigerator. They're very creamy. Okay, it's mostly like cream cheese. Okay, with a little sweetener, use stevia or something of that sort, and it's kind of like high-fat, low-carb candy, if you will. Okay. Pardon?
Avocado, stevia, and plasmon.
Right. Avocados are a great source of fat. I have half an avocado every day. I have for the last 7 years. Okay. So,
What does it mix you said? Talk about the recipe.
the recipe for fat bombs?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll get you a recipe. Okay. I think I have some in the car right now. Recipes, not fat bombs. Coconut oil, we've gone over. Okay. This is a saturated fat. Lasts for years. Okay. Doesn't go bad. It's a good fat to use for frying and other things where you want high fats. And it's particularly rich in lauric acid, which improves cholesterol, okay, the HDL, and kills bacteria and other pathogens. So there's a lot of benefit to coconut oil, besides the fact that it's got butter, that we're much more familiar with. Can contains vitamins A, E, and K2, which you need. Those are essential vitamins, and you can only absorb them with fat. You will not get them in margarine. You should throw away your margarine. It's bad for you. And olive oil, we've talked a good deal about. People say, well, this is all monosaturated. Actually, 14% of it is saturated fat. There are very few sources, if maybe none, in the food world of a single fat. You cannot get just saturated fat. You can't get just monosaturated. You can't even get just polysaturated unsaturated fat, because all of them contain elements of the other kinds of fats. So we're constantly eating saturated fat when you think, oh, I eat olive oil, I don't eat any saturated fat. No, you're eating saturated fat. Okay? You have to understand that fats are always a blend in that regard. And our favorites here, meat fats, all right? How many people used to store bacon fat back before you heard it would kill you? Yeah, your mother did, right? You always, big frying pan, pour the bacon fat on. Excellent fat. And then you would, what, fry potatoes in it or anything else, and it tastes great, right? And then you did away with it for the last 40 years, and unfortunately, we didn't need to do that. But it still works, and bacon fat is a good fat, okay? As beef fat, tallow, lard, okay? Those are all animal-based fats. And it wasn't until 1957 when Ansel Keys said fat was bad for us that anybody in the world ever thought that the fat from an animal was bad for human beings. No one ever came up with that idea, okay? Ansel Keys had this bizarre notion that fat was bad for us, fudged his data to make it look like it was, and then got the whole nutrition world to believe it was. And now we're stuck with this mantra of fat is bad, and to the point that it's like in our blood. We can't get that idea out. We're eating fat and going, oh, no. That was something we were taught, and what we were taught was wrong. Okay, and if you want the whole history of that, read Nina Teicholz's Big Fat Surprise. She goes through the whole history of how we got to where we are today about fats. One other point that I want to make before I finish, well, you can also consider these other sources of oils. Okay, palm oil has some problems because it's the palm plants are grown in big plantations in Indonesia, and a lot of forest is cut down for those, and there's a lot of concern that palm oil, which is used a lot in industry and industrial cooking, is really bad for the environment. The way it's grown is bad. The oil itself is fine. It's the environmental concerns. Anybody ever buy avocado oil? Yeah, it's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, a little jar like $12, you know. It's fine, it's an oil, but you're going to pay a lot for it. I've never bought it. Fish oil we talked about. Flaxseed is, of all the seeds, is a good oil. And we're going to talk about seeds and the oils that come from it, and, but also nut oils like peanut oil and canola, or it's actually canola oils from rape seeds. Rape seeds are grown principally in Canada, and people didn't like the word rape in their food, so they renamed it canola, like Canada oil, canola. Get it? Pardon? Yeah, you can. If you're going to have one of the polyunsaturated fats, that's probably one of the better ones. Here's the problem, and I'll finish with this. I missed that slide somewhere here, about oils. The problem with seed oils, okay, that come from all these cooking oils, the types of fat, polyunsaturated fats in vegetable and seed oils, including canola, soybean, corn, sesame, grapeseed, peanut oil, sunflowers, all these, they're manufactured. See that? That's not a cold press, that's an oil press, where seeds are taken and they're heated to high temperatures, put under high pressure, and the oil is extracted using chemicals to get the oil out of the stuff. It smells bad, so they add fragrances to cover the mask, the smell of the oil, and it looks gummy. It's this awful stuff. So they use clarifiers. Okay. So the point is that seeds are not generally a good source of oil because of what we have to do to get the oil out of them. And even though Walter Willett at Harvard will tell you that polyunsaturated fats are the best fats to use, to eat, okay, he ignores the fact that in order to get them, we put them through this process. So every one of the polyunsaturated oils have been extracted in this way. Remember what I said about don't expose this to heat? Well, that's what we do with polyunsaturated oils. We expose them to high heat. What happens? They become rancid in small quantities, okay, and we're eating them, and we have rancid oils in our system that then oxidize and then are associated with cardiovascular disease. Okay? So it's not the food itself. If we could eat the seeds, which we can't easily, can't digest them, we'd be okay. But by the time they're processed, it's a little bit like milk. You know, the milk coming out of a cow is pretty good for us, okay? By the time we pasteurize it, homogenize it, remove the fat, take out the vitamin D, add the vitamin D, put some sugar in because it tastes terrible and stuff. The stuff that we get in our low-fat milk container is awful, okay? It's so highly processed, it's night and day from what came out of the cow. Well, it's the same kind of thing that happens to oils, okay? So my recommendation is you diminish the use of these oils, okay? If you got corn oil, throw it away. If you've got something like canola oil, okay. But in general, these oils are not particularly good for us because of what happens to them in our body. And I don't know that I have the slide here, but there are studies that show associations between those oils and things like cancer and other things. If you go to this guy, take this home, take a look at it, short paragraph on each kind of oil, give you some better information about them. Here, seed and vegetable oils. Industrial seed and vegetable oils are highly processed, refined products that are way too rich in omega-3. The two types of fatty acids in oils, omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-3 is what's in your cod liver oil and in your fatty fish. It's a good oil, we need it. It's an essential oil. Omega-6 is also an essential oil. We have to have it. We don't, our bodies don't make it. But we're getting it in such large quantities that it's not good for us. We need to reduce the amount of omega-6 and increase the amount of omega-3. They should be in a ratio of about 2 to 1. Right now they're in a ratio of about 16 to 1. That's not good. Okay? So if you stick with the saturated fats, and the olive oil, the coconut oil, butter, okay, lard, tallow, whatever, then you don't have to use vegetable oils for anything. Okay? If you want salad dressing, use olive oil. If you want to fry something or stir fry it, use coconut oil, tallow, bacon, drippings, whatever. Okay? So there's no reason to be using these vegetable oils, these highly processed seed oils. These oils have been wrongly considered heart healthy by the media and many nutrition professionals in the past decades. New data links these oils with many serious diseases, including heart disease and cancer. And you see the numbers 21, 22, 23. If you go to Authority Nutrition, the citation here at the top, and then you click on those numbers, it'll take you to the study, okay, so that you will know why he's saying they're associated with heart disease and cancer. Okay, fats and oils, we've done that. Okay, I'll take a couple questions next week. Then we're going to do breakfast, and you're going to get to sample some cereal, and I'm going to, how many people have ever made scrambled eggs with cream cheese? One? Good, I'm making for the rest of you, have some.
Yeah.
Okay, if you've never had it, I have it every day of the week, okay? You will discover eggs in a whole new way. Okay, questions?
Oh, you mentioned something about stevia. You haven't
Yep.
talked about artificial sweeteners, so. I was
Sure,
wondering if
I'll
that's
do some
something-
talking on that. I had the stevia package in here once. But of all the artificial sweeteners, stevia is really not artificial. It comes from a plant. Okay, it's like a yucca plant kind of thing. And it's very sweet, and a little bit goes a long way. So if you want to use, if you're going to do some baking with things like coconut flour, almond flour, things of that sort that aren't going to raise your blood sugar, and you want some sweetener, stevia is a good sugar to use.
Oh, xylitol.
Pardon me?
Xylitol.
Well, xylitol, maltol, all the tols, those are sugar alcohols. Okay, they're okay. They're indigestible sugars. They taste sweet, but they go right through you. Yeah, they're all right. I mean, there's been no studies that show xylitols. Remember saccharin and the big scare about cancer, and they were feeding mice huge quantities of saccharin, and it turned out that even with that, they took a lot. So I just tend to stay away from artificial things if I can.
The ones we use is a Fruity.